Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we are going to discuss one of the most famous and notorious astrological topics there is, Mercury retrograde. Yes, we have our next Mercury retrograde starting on March 15th, 2025 at 2:45 a.m. Eastern Time as Mercury stations retrograde at 9 degrees 35 minutes of Aries. Mercury will travel back into Pisces, reaching 26 degrees 49 minutes of Pisces until April 7th. So we're going to talk about the time period between March 15th to April 7th and what will be unfolding during this particular Mercury retrograde journey. And I have to tell you that right off the bat, this one is different. In fact, it's quite special because Mercury retrograde will be traveling behind Venus retrograde, remaining within 4 to 2 degrees of her energy field. So basically within orb, although not at an exact conjunction during the retrograde. But Mercury is being escorted or led by Venus retrograde, covering the same territory in your chart. So we have a double retrograde going on here within the first decan of Aries, 9 degrees back to 0 degrees of Aries, and then in the last decan of Pisces. That brings up some important themes for us to look at, which I'll be jumping into here in just a moment, highlighting more of what this particular journey is bringing up for us, and then I'll go through the dates of the transiting aspects that Mercury retrograde will experience, again, March 15th until April 7th. So to begin, you want to look at your natal astrology chart and identify which house or houses you have 9 degrees of Aries back to 26 degrees of Pisces, as this is the area of your life where Mercury retrograde is going to show up for you and ask you to slow down, rethink, reprioritize, and reconsider. Mercury retrograde is associated with our mental process, what we are considering, saying, communicating, how to determine our priorities, and what we need to get done in a day. Mercury retrograde is taking us through a review process here that you will feel more personally if you have planets or points between 26 degrees of Pisces to 9 degrees of Aries. This again will be a more impactful Mercury retrograde for you, and the advice is to slow down, sit with it, think things through more, and give yourself more time to consider and weigh your next choices and options. Mercury not only relates to what we think about and express, but also our daily patterns and daily habits. This is a time to be more flexible, to understand that changes are going to happen. The best laid plans are going to switch or be canceled. What you thought would start will maybe be pushed back. There could be delays, and or you want to ensure that you're clear on the particular details and specifics. You don't want to rush ahead and force something too quickly, which is how that Mercury in Aries can operate. Mercury really needs to slow it down here during this retrograde, especially in Aries, and sit with those burning ideas or those exciting new projects or endeavors. The ability to remain flexible will be necessary, as well as to not overly focus on one particular expectation or outcome, because again, it is going to shift and change. Typical advice for Mercury retrograde is to hold off on signing contracts or moving ahead with brand new endeavors. Of course, that doesn't always work out that way. That isn't how the real world unfolds, but it is about being more mindful, giving yourself more time to review those specifics, and understanding that what starts during a Mercury retrograde is most likely going to be changed or shifted later. So even if you do sign that contract or begin something, you might realize later on in April or May, oh shoot, we forgot this, or I didn't bring up this topic to discuss or include. So know that even if things don't appear to be forgotten or an issue or problem during the Mercury retrograde, it typically unfolds that something comes back around after the retrograde that needs to be included. Now, this particular Mercury retrograde, because Mercury is traveling behind that retrograde Venus, Venus is bringing in more courtesy, graciousness, and personal review. Venus is in retrograde in Aries, asking us to consider ourselves and what we're truly desiring and what we want to create. The Venus retrograde connects us to our hearts, our needs, our receptivity, connects us to friendships, relationships, partnerships. And in Aries, she's also undergoing a reassessment of what she wants and values. So as she travels with this Mercury, there is this double retrograde unfolding that is asking you to be more consciously clear on how you are approaching something in your life or moving through it, or it's presenting itself, how you are approaching it with a deeper connection to what you really value, and to not hold back what you need, to not disconnect from expressing what you need and what you want now. But because this is a retrograde, there may be more time required to get clear on that in order to ensure you are not recreating a cycle that you've already grown out of. So the slowdown here, I feel, is actually a gift to both of these planets in Aries, because that Aries energy wants to rush ahead, get it going, ignite, and move quickly. But both planets retrograde in Aries are saying, slow your roll, apply the brakes, don't stampede out the gate just to recreate what you've already completed or outgrown, or what you're realizing you want to change in your life and in yourself. This is the energy of self-improvement here with both planets retrograde in Aries, and Venus is going to add in more of the truth that you need to see in yourself, more of the personal reflections on how you've been operating or showing up, or what has been happening within you that has demonstrated any kind of disconnection from your self-value, your self-love, and your self-worth. Now, I did 2 previous podcasts for you discussing the Venus retrograde in Aries. There was a part 1 and a part 2, and if you would like more on the Venus energies, please listen to those episodes, since I want to focus on Mercury here in this episode. But Venus is a central figure in Mercury retrograde, and we are learning to integrate what we love about ourselves even more into what we are creating, communicating, and expressing. As Mercury follows behind this Venus, Venus could be handing off to Mercury something you need to look at and consider. Basically, Venus might get to an understanding or an issue first and realize, I don't like this. This doesn't work for me. This doesn't resonate. This isn't connected to who I am now. It's not in alignment. I don't want this. And then she gives it over to Mercury, and Mercury says, yes, I understand. Let me think this through and determine a new approach, a new solution, or a new way to look at this issue that supports who you are now. There's an internal review going on, and there could even be something you need to see in the mirror, whether that is physically or figuratively. What do you need to see in yourself that is being reset here? And it's being reset in a very powerful manner that requires exfoliating anything that has been overdeveloped or overdone through the Aries energies. If there's been too much focus on self, an over enhanced ego, an unhealthy ego, a false self. If there's been anything that has been constructed in order to appear a certain way or to present yourself in a certain manner, you're going to have a review, again, looking in the mirror or seeing something in yourself that you realize, this isn't who I am anymore. I don't like this. I don't want this. I'm going to improve this and change it around. This could certainly be wanting to shift something in your physical appearance, in your body, in your sense of style, self-confidence, changing up any habits or patterns that don't feel healthy or strong anymore. The Aries energy is about our sense of self, and that pertains to our physical body, physical appearance, biology, our genetics, and our bloodlines. Okay, you can't change your bloodline, but the understanding is that what do I want to do better in myself? Where are my personal standards lacking? And how do I want to improve it from a place of understanding more of who I am now, which is Mercury, and also a deeper reservoir of self-love and self-worth, which is Venus. So this is the energy of a makeover, a renovation, and holding yourself to a new standard or at an energetic level, fully owning how you're different and how you've changed, that feels like you're more comfortable in your own soul skin than ever before. And so all of these themes are important as Mercury and Venus are retrograde in Aries. So again, that starts on Saturday, March 15th. It could be on Friday, March 14th for you, depending on your time zone. But when Mercury stations retrograde at 9 degrees 35 minutes of Aries, this is also the same degree point of the upcoming Aries solar eclipse. That solar eclipse that's on March 29th. So here, as Mercury stations retrograde, is a loud message around what you are shifting and changing, perhaps a halt to something that's not working for you. There's a reverberation that can be felt as Mercury stations retrograde, and it could be louder and clearer, ringing in your ears around what you're meant to bring your attention to in yourself. This is about your personal consciousness, being responsible and aware of your energy field, and it's happening on that solar eclipse point, meaning this is also where you're going to have some of the biggest life changes occur over the next year. So the universe is making something very evident to you when it's focusing on particular degree points. It's also signaling that a new start is coming. And that's part of the Aries energy as well. The next beginning is approaching. It could come in rapidly out of the blue. It has a spark of energy to it that it's like, whoa, what just happened? This just showed up in front of me. This opportunity presented itself. This individual came out of the blue and showed up in my life, because it's working with an eclipse point. And eclipse points work with the nodes, the north node and the south node. And this eclipse is working with the north node, which is fated new beginnings. Fated new beginnings are on the way. What do you need to prepare in order to clear out the old and be ready for the new starts that the universe wants to deliver? And Mercury is giving you messages around that. Mercury in Aries has a fast tongue, quick-witted, speaks before thinking, can make mistakes, can be too aggressive, too direct, but also quite honest and truthful. So there are messages coming through. The universe is signaling what you're ready to start next in your life, but you've got to be ready. And perhaps there are things that you realize you want to get rid of and grow away from or move away from. And Mercury stationing retrograde can highlight that. This signals that many people are moving into the next chapter in their life. And this particular eclipse is going to open up those pathways, opportunities, options, developments, projects, people. You get the idea. So take responsibility for what that is for you that is no longer in alignment, that no longer resonates or supports you. And know that this Mercury retrograde retrograde is blessing you with the time to prepare and be in a deeper connection to what you want to receive and create, which is part of the ongoing conjunction with Venus. There are resets occurring in friendships, relationships, marriages, love connections. There are resets occurring in finances, investments, value systems. The financial markets are going to be affected as well. There are resets occurring in business, how you do business, what you want in a business or at work, the type of projects you enjoy and want to focus on. There are new understandings and inspirations coming to light around what you want to create and express, professionally, personally, or both. There can even be resets happening in how you want to live your life and where you want to put your energy and what your understanding is worthwhile to you now. So a double retrograde, especially in the very beginning of Aries, is resetting our lives at a core level. And for you specifically, it's where you have these early degrees of Aries in your chart by house placement, since the house placement is the environment and area of life where you experience these energies. Now, it's also important to note that as Mercury stations retrograde March 14th or 15th, it does coincide with that Virgo lunar eclipse, which happens March 14th at 2:55 a.m. Eastern Time. So there's a sense here of big, clear realizations that are not working and are no longer serving you. Virgo is co-ruled by both Mercury and Chiron. And so with one of the ruling planets stationing retrograde around the Virgo lunar eclipse, bigger changes are at hand. And I do have a video for you on YouTube discussing the Virgo lunar eclipse about what's not working, what might be operating behind the scenes within your own energy that you need to evolve and understand. I feel too that with the Virgo lunar eclipse, because it is an earth sign, it will be something evident and clear to you in your physical environment. It will be something breaking down that is not fixable. It just has to be replaced or upgraded, which could be honestly wildly inconvenient. But with this focus on Aries energies, it means there is a better solution or a new approach that you'll be happy you have after the replacement happens. So just one example of the energies, but I feel that this Mercury retrograde has more impact because it's working more closely with these eclipse energies. And as we know, eclipses are fast moving and they apply to timeline changes and shifts. You might be surprised at people's decisions. There could be some wild choices that people make with this energy, and they just say, I'm done with this, I'm complete, I don't want it, I want a new start, a new job, a new option. People are feeling the urge to move into this new part of themselves that maybe could be bursting at the seams. And they're tired of waiting, which is also that Aries energy of impatience. There could be disruptive impulsivity, bursts of anger, a sense of I'm at the end of my rope and I can't contain it anymore. And all of that would signal an energy shift that's going on. I also think that there are going to be many people, depending on where they're at in their energy and in their level of consciousness, who are going to be struggling with these changes during this eclipse season. And they're not going to know what to do. There can be bigger emotional outbursts and energy circulating with eclipses, especially in the fire signs. And we also have very strong Pisces energies right now. So people can be unconsciously expressing things, not sure how to get a handle on it, and struggling if they're not growing, healing, or evolving. So do keep in mind that everyone has their choices to make. Everyone will be making the choice that they think is best for them. But it's also important to allow people to be in their choices, their energy, and on their path. So there is detachment required here without inserting yourself or your energy where it's not needed. as you could even see some of your own patterns or habits around where you're trying to overly assist someone or save them or direct them or whatever the case may be. And this would be something to look at in yourself. Again, going back to the double retrograde here in Aries, what are my own habits and patterns here around how I show up and maybe overgive, overdo, or over provide in situations to other people's own detriment, where you might realize you're an enabler or that you've been handling a lot that shouldn't even be on your plate. And if you were to return that energy to the person that you're viewing needs assistance or saving or help, you're going to be changing the dynamic in a way that actually invites them into more of their own evolution or conscious power or responsibility or whatever the case may be. So there's a big shift here for those who are light workers, empaths, soul guides, energy anchors on the planet. If you're holding more than is necessary and you have taken on the role of assisting people to their own detriment and your own detriment, that could be something that becomes more evident to you during this eclipse energy and this Mercury retrograde cycle. So after stationing retrograde during the Virgo lunar eclipse, Mercury then travels back, trailing behind Venus, and will make a conjunction to the Sun on March 24th. This happens at 4 degrees of Aries, and the next day on March 25th, Mercury is sextile Pluto in Aquarius at 3 degrees. So these are both strong aspects for Mercury retrograde to encounter, as the conjunction to the Sun occurs during every Mercury retrograde. And Mercury is blasted with the light and consciousness of the Sun. The Sun is exalted in Aries, very strong, very powerful, shining brightly in that sense of self with renewed confidence, and receiving support through Pluto in Aquarius as well. Deep reprogramming here is occurring. This Mercury retrograde in Aries is being asked to truly look at himself, the depths of himself, what he's been holding and carrying, the internal thoughts, messages, stories he's been living and creating, and asking himself, is this still true for me? Because that conjunction to the Sun with a Cazimi and that sextile to Pluto is an intense transformation. Again, looking in the mirror and understanding, I want to do this better. I want to evolve this. I want to shift this. And we know that the mind is very powerful in not only our intentions, but our manifestations. Where have you been limited in what you've been manifesting and creating in your life? Because this Mercury retrograde is going to show you not only what you're ready to change, but support you in doing so. So these two power days, March 24th and March 25th, there's a lot going on, and you could feel it internally. You could feel a sense of there's a lot on your mind, or a lot that you want to shift and evolve that has been holding you back, and you're ready to face it. And that's because Pluto always asks us to look at the truth within ourselves, to look at what that fear has been, or what that shadow energy has represented. What part of the shadow self is ready to come to light, be seen for what it really is, and powerfully evolved. So I feel this is a pivotal time in the Mercury retrograde journey where new seeds of consciousness are arriving. And Mercury will now have time to be in those energies as he travels behind the Sun and is going to re-enter Pisces on March 29th. Now remember, he's traveling right behind Venus, but he's also catching up to her. And so now as he re-enters Pisces, he's only within 2 degrees of Venus. And here she is exalted in Pisces, and she's flooding him with more support, more kindness, more empathy. And this is where Mercury now jumps into a Piscean boat to sail the ocean waves and float within the abyss of his higher consciousness. Mercury re-enters Pisces on March 29th at 10:18 p.m. Eastern Time and has an immediate conjunction to Neptune in Pisces. Neptune, the captain of the ocean, the one who determines the waves, the tides, and how we float and move in those higher levels of beingness. Now, Mercury is in a state of pure surrender, and Neptune has a message for Mercury, but he's not going to understand it right away. And that's because Mercury is overwhelmed by these Piscean energies, doesn't know what to say, doesn't know how to express it, gets tongue-tied, and realizes the best thing to do is to shut up, calm down, and float on the ocean. So there's a significant change here from that fiery, expressive Aries energy back into the Piscean surrender, where the best thing to do is not only trust what you're feeling and trust what you're receiving, but to be okay not knowing. I don't know what to do next. I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know what the process is or what the next step may be. And let's be real, we hate that, right? Most of us don't want that to be what's presented. We want to know, what can I count on? What can I do about it? What's going to work? What's the solution? We desire to have the understanding, but because this Mercury retrograde is now in a very big energy of surrender, there's going to be a part of yourself here that you're going to have to trust the not knowingness, to be okay with lack of clarity, and to see how that is beautifully divine, even if you're struggling against it, even if a part of you can't handle it and doesn't want this. The universe says, empty the container, empty the mind, empty your expectations and your desire to know, because when you do so, especially this Mercury retrograde, remember, conjunct Neptune, conjunct Venus, and also getting closer to Saturn in Pisces, it's the release of all of those thoughts, ideas, opinions, desires, and outcomes that is the best thing you can do for your energy. Now, is that realistically going to happen? Probably not. Probably not. But there's something about making room for the new to be received so that you can be more receptive here to the divine downloads that are going to arrive to support this reset that is unfolding. So at a practical level, that means there could be things that you call in order to support wherever you're feeling confused. Maybe you need to calm the mind and do some guided meditations. Maybe you need to detach and just let it be, right? Push something over to the back burner and deal with it later. Maybe there are other ways to work with it through a creative outlet, something artistic, something that lifts you up and allows you to maintain a higher sense of hope and trust, even if there is confusion and uncertainty. When we have strong Pisces energies, which will be the case the end of March, with 5 planets and points in a stellium in the final degrees of Pisces, there's going to be bigger questions that arise that we can feel uncomfortable with, and just we want to know the answers and what to rely upon. But the universe is signaling that we're moving through a much bigger cycle here that has to clear out, has to end. So what are you clearing out that you've realized is no longer for your best and highest good? Mercury retrograde in Pisces is going to show you what that is. And you're going to know it because your energy will sync. And that's where the Pisces energy gives us clear messages around our human journey. Because the Pisces energy is duality between the human realms and the spiritual realms, where your energy syncs is where you're getting a message that it's not in alignment with where you're going next, with your spiritual growth, or with what truly lights you up now. And that's where we can feel the sadness, the release, the melancholy, We can feel a need to escape, a desire to back away and not look at reality. There can be sorrow, melancholy, and grief around what is over and completing. And all of those, of course, are important parts of our human journey. We all feel those at times. I mean, that's just part of how we're designed. We're emotionally designed to have the full spectrum of feelings. But the end of Pisces can show you what has accumulated, what needs to be processed and felt, what needs to be purged and released. So there could be a lot going on, again, the end of March, that is signaling to you what you need to move through in order to set yourself free from a previous cycle. And Mercury is going to be receiving messages around that. Keep in mind that Mercury often needs a way to understand it. What is this about? What am I learning? What's going on? So it's a good time to also look for resources, books, messages, spiritual perspectives, anything that calls to you that gives you an understanding of how to move through endings, closures, and grief. Now, if you have already done this, as I know that many of you have shared with me, then you're going to feel a lightness and an openness. You're going to feel like you're ready for the new, and you could even be impatient and sensing, well, what do I do with myself while I'm in this waiting room here? What do I do with my energy as I've already cleared out what's done and gone, and now I just want that new start to come in and get moving? Then this would be a time to look at what can you do to take care of your energy, to stay in those higher frequencies, and to make good use of this time by enjoying your life, your priorities, and whatever continues to lift your spirits. Now, Mercury is also moving slowly the end of March into the beginning of April. And through the opening days of April 1st to April 6th, Mercury retrograde is conjunct that North Node at 27 degrees of Pisces. Now, this exact conjunction occurs over a number of days, and it means that our cosmic antennas are up and receiving massive downloads, intuitive understandings. Mercury in this extended conjunction to the North Node, again at 27 degrees of Pisces, is bringing you messages and understandings around what you are completing, what you've been learning, perhaps the bigger story of it all. Pisces is outside of time and space and connects us to multiple timelines unfolding at once. You could have some insights into past lives. You could have some realizations around cycles and closures. You could connect through the multiple open realms here that take you into other timelines and show you the origination of a story or an experience that you are rooted to across timelines or across dimensions. This is also going to support trusting the cycles even more because it's occurring again at 27 degrees of Pisces near the very, very end of the full zodiac wheel. We are meant to release and close out anything that is no longer in resonance. So you're closing out those soul contracts, connections, lessons, guidance, titles, roles, intentions. You get the idea. Plus, this Mercury is closer to Saturn in Pisces at this time as well. And that brings about a serious finality because Saturn is done with something. Saturn is not tolerating it, not contributing, not wanting to continue forth with whatever you're realizing is over. And Mercury is receiving that loud and clear with a conjunction to that North Node for extended days. Now, Mercury doesn't make an exact conjunction to Saturn, nor does he make an exact sextile to Uranus in Taurus at 25 degrees. But they're really close. They're only a degree apart. So they are still in play here, because after this Mercury stations direct on April 7th at 7:08 a.m. Eastern Time, Mercury then moves ahead, still in conjunction to Venus and a near exact conjunction to Saturn, sextiling Uranus in Taurus, all of this occurring at 25 degrees and 26 degrees. And Mercury has greater clarity about where he needs to go next. As he spends this extended time conjunct the North Node, there are new soul messages coming through that we will need time to integrate and sit with. And there is a deeper reprogramming happening that could feel quite supportive of what you really want next. If you have compromised yourself or held back who you are, what you need to say, what you need to write, communicate, or express, I feel that this Mercury retrograde is going to have us looking at that and also understanding the ingrained belief systems or belief patterns that we've been working with that have ultimately limited what we want or what we need to say. Now, Mercury never has an exact conjunction with Saturn in Pisces. Instead, Mercury picks up the pace and continues ahead of the Saturn, but the Saturn energy is felt. It's very present around responsibility, commitments to self, what we need to take care of, and the power of our mind and words. So this is a big Mercury retrograde journey of understanding what has held you back or been limiting you. And you could feel that there will be a revival and a renewal around moving towards what you want, expressing your truth, knowing more of who you are now, and trusting your gut level messages more regularly and more often. After Mercury stations direct on April 7th, Mercury then will re-enter Aries on April 15th. And I'll be discussing more about this particular Mercury retrograde on my Wednesday podcast episodes, where we look at the energies of the week. But I hope this supports you in understanding what is occurring during the Mercury retrograde in your own chart, but also at a collective level. This is where people will disappear, where you won't get a response or you won't hear back from people. You'll wonder what's going on, but they will then reappear at some point. This is where people are going to need more time to themselves, more relaxation or time offline. Also, there can be great inconsistency, unreliability, and confusion that arises with this particular Mercury retrograde. So just a heads up in case that is something you encounter. More people are going to back out of things and say, I don't want that. I'm not interested. I thought I wanted it and now I don't. How do I cancel? Or I'd like to change the plans. I think that's going to be even more pronounced during this Mercury retrograde because of the extended time in Pisces and interacting with the planets and points in Pisces. But this could be a highly creative time. You could feel quite invigorated and uplifted. You could feel like you're more connected to your intuition and your soul guidance than ever before. And that is certainly what I hope you feel, because this is a beautiful time to trust yourself and what you're receiving even more. And if it would help you in any way, I now have available on my website 4 free guided meditations, which are short, 20 minutes or less. And they offer you ways of connecting with your energy as well as feeling supported during this very big cycle on the planet. So it's called Soul Bliss Guided Meditations. Again, they are free on my website. I'll put the link below the podcast here if you would enjoy them or if they would support you, especially during these grand Piscean waves. As always, thank you so much for joining me for this podcast. I'll be back every Monday and Wednesday for a new episode, and we'll keep discussing these Mercury retrograde energies as they unfold as well. Wishing you a beautiful Mercury retrograde. Thank you so much for joining me here, and I'll see you back here soon.